Hey people, Standoff talking. Now this is from BBC News. Crime hits Chicago grapples with police vaccine revolt. A standoff in Chicago, where the head of the city's largest police union is urging officers to defy a vaccine mandate, is the latest battle line being drawn in a nationwide fight over COVID-19 jabs. Chicago, a city of nearly 3 million people, has seen more than 1,600 sexual assaults, nearly 3,000 shootings, and 649 murders this year, a 14% increase over last. Just as violent crimes have risen, though, thousands of the city's police force may not show up to work. Officers are weighing whether to resist a mayoral mandate requiring all public employees report their vaccine status. City employees must now show proof of vaccination or submit to bi-weekly testing, unless approved for a religious or medical exemption. By the end of this year, all employees must be vaccinated. Nearly one-third of Chicago's almost 13,000-member police department have so far refused to register their vaccination status, putting them on track for dismissal. 21 have been officially removed from active duty so far, but some officials have warned that the mandate could leave Chicago's police force dangerously depleted. During a CNN town hall Thursday night, President Joe Biden said U.S. emergency responders who defy vaccine mandates should be fired. Chicago is not alone in facing this problem. Police departments across the U.S. have been stymied in their efforts to coax officers into getting vaccinated against COVID-19. Now the leading cause of death for police in the U.S., according to the Officer Down Memorial page, a non-profit that tracks police officer deaths. In the decade before the COVID-19 pandemic, an average of 166 U.S. police officers died in the line of duty each year, according to the non-profit. Last year, 374 officers died, 245 of them due to COVID-19, more than any other cause combined. This virus is no different than the gunfire we take as cops, Chicago Police Superintendent David Brown said on Tuesday. I will do everything I can, and I will say anything I need in order to convince officers to do everything they can to save lives. Yet vaccination rates among officers have mostly lagged behind the general public. It's hard to understand, said Art Acevedo, who has served as chief of police in Miami, Houston, Austin, or vaccine hesitancy among police. You'd think we'd be closer to 100% vaccination. The thing is, I'll say this, for people who say that they should, there is immunity from being sued for the manufacturers. So if anything, and I mean anything, goes wrong when you take your vaccination, you can't sue, there's nothing you can do, you're on your own. But they never want to bring that up, even though that is a fact and anyone could look that up. Let's keep going. Mr. Acevedo said he has urged reluctant officers to use their training and look at the data. Every living president on both sides of the aisle has been vaccinated, he said. In my business, we call that a clue. Mr. Acevedo attributed the resistance to a mistrust in government. Others have expressed irritation with what they see as government overreach, as well as skepticism of the vaccine safety. And I want to say this, when people keep saying skepticism, they always talk about it as if the government does not have a history of abusing the public and lying to them. Tuskegee and other things. In Chicago, the head of the city's largest police union, John Catanzara, has called on some 11,000 members to defy the city's requirement to report their vaccination status. It is the city's clear attempts to force officers to Chicken Little the sky is falling into compliance, he said last week. Do not fall for it. Hold the line. Mr. Catanzara, who did not respond to the BBC's request for comment, has compared the mandate to Nazi Germany and has suggested the vaccine requirements an illegal violation of privacy. Yes, it is. A judge last week granted the city's request for a temporary order barring Mr. Catanzara from making any public comments that encouraged members of his union to resist the order. This is blatantly unconstitutional because the Constitution gives you freedom of speech, and that is something that he's allowed to do. However, he has continued to post videos to the union's public YouTube channel in an apparent defiance of the order. According to Mr. Catanzara, as many as 50% of Chicago's 13,000 officers would take unpaid leave rather than report their vaccine status, threatening to bring a public safety crisis to America's third largest cities. Police resistance to vaccine mandates has been seen in at least a handful of other cities across the U.S. Los Angeles Sheriff Alex Villanueva, who oversees the largest sheriff department in the country, has said he will not enforce the country's vaccine requirements on his staff. Mike Solan, president of Seattle's rank-and-file police union, described the city's COVID-19 mandate as a political betrayal and has said this week that up to 350 of his officers could be out of a job. And Massachusetts, the state police union, is suing the governor over vaccine requirements. In Chicago, some say the line between police and politicians has been widened by the mayor, Lori Lightfoot, a Democrat whose 2019 campaign was animated by promises to reform the city's force. Police feel vilified by city authorities, says Raymond Lopez, a city council representative. There's a general sense that our officers are not appreciated in the city they seek to serve and protect. Morale is low among the ranks. Ms. Lightfoot, who was criticized this month for breaking mask rule when she was photographed barefaced at a Chicago basketball game, has held firm to her vaccine mandate. So this is a person who cannot follow her own rules but expects others to follow the rules, she said. This is clear hypocrisy. She has accused Mr. Catanzara of trying to induce an insurrection. It is truly a bizarre world where the head of the Chicago police is now or police union, is now being accused of starting an insurrection against the government. This is so weird. And she has dismissed concerns of widespread police shortages, insisting there has been no disruption to the force so far. Correction, there is no disruption to her safety. Your safety for the average Chicagoan, you're on your own if anything goes wrong. Because like I said, they don't care about you. As well, like Michael Jackson once said. And I'll say this. Just like with the COVID deaths where people have manipulated figures counting any person dying of something while having COVID, like say having a car crash while being diagnosed with COVID, and they've counted that. Who's to say that they don't just manipulate the figures and say, well, crime is not low because they just don't investigate it, therefore they don't count it. Well, I'm not saying that's happening, but who's to say it doesn't happen? Anyway, let's keep going. Asked about the risk at a news conference, she said on Monday, I don't engage in a lot of hypotheticals. The number of police who have continued to say no after being given opportunities to comply with the reporting requirement is very small, she said. Still, other city officials fear the mandate will ignite a public safety crisis. Last week, the two city council representatives Marty Quinn and Matt O'Shea wrote a letter to Ms. Lightfoot asking for the mandate to be delayed, citing a dwindling police force and rising incidents of crime and violence. Mr. Quinn, who is vaccinated, told the BBC the potential shortage of police is overwhelmingly the primary concern of his constituents. Since last week, my phone's been burning about what's going on, he said. What I'm hearing loud and clear is that we may have to make sure that every single officer that's capable of being on the job is on the job. Even before the mandate, Chicagoans have been left with a pared-down police force due in part to record levels of retirement and budget cuts which eliminated 614 vacant positions in the department this year. We can ill afford to lose any more police, said Mr. Quinn. This is not about the mandate, it's not about Mayor Lightfoot and John Catanzara, it's about public safety. The need for police is now at odds with another need of public safety: vaccinated frontline workers. Their resistance to vaccine mandates reflects a broader American trend, said Chief Acevedo. Police officers don't grow in petri dishes, they come from society. But while battles over vaccines have broken out across professions, police officers and other frontline workers pose a particular threat. The issue here is when you have interactions with police officers, it's unpredictable, said Dr. Abrar Karan, an infectious disease expert at Stanford University. Like a doctor, EMT, or nurse, police officers have to interact with everyone, including the elderly and immunocompromised, all of whom could be put at risk. Indeed, for some, a meeting with an unvaccinated officer or other first responder could be deadly. I want to stop in. They have said many, many times, this this vaccine does not stop you from contracting it. It doesn't stop you from spreading it. This line about the vulnerable is a straight up lie, because the scientists and the government have straight up admitted it doesn't stop you getting it and it doesn't stop you spreading it. So why would anyone take it? Anyway, let's keep going. Not having police, especially in areas of high crime, will be a huge cost to citizens there, he said. But we know that vaccines are safe. I think the risk to others is something we need to consider more seriously. This whole thing, hang on, where we say the vaccines are safe, the average testing period of a vaccine before it's released to the public is 5 years. This one was released after 10 months? It cannot possibly be safe if you just take into account the time that it takes to test it compared to all the other vaccines on the market. Anyway, I'm going to leave this article in the description. Please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.